So here I have the prediction game. Sorry, predation game, or as I said, preemptive price cutting. So what is the story here? The story is very simple. So we have an entrant and we have an incumbent. The scenario is basically this: in a market, there is a monopolist farm or there is a monopolist, and one new farm is considering to enter because there is one single farm and too much profit and all of that, you know. Now, what we are trying to explore is, given such a situation, is there any possible strategy or threat the monopolist has, undertaking which or executing which it can stop the new firm to enter and enjoy the monopoly power? Or, in other words, whether this new firm will actually enter or not. So this is called a predation game. Okay, so you know this comes from basically predatory behavior, and in other words, preemptive price cutting. We say this as a preemptive price cutting because uh, let us look at the normal form representation of the game and understand this reason. So there is our new entrant, okay, entrant who is trying to enter that monopolistic market. There's two strategies, out and in, and if it plays out, that is, if it stays out from of the market, then definitely monopolist will enjoy, and the payoff will be 2, and obviously entrant will have 0, right? So this one is entrant, this one is incumbent's payoff or the monopolist's payoff. Now, what happens if the new farm chooses in to enter? Then our monopolist or incumbent has two strategies. One is fight, and here fight, essentially, this fight is the reason we use this preemptive price cutting term, because we are thinking of this, that by the term fight, we mean that the monopolist will charge a lower price or try to undercut, specifically because the monopolist, as you know, charges always more than the marginal cost, and so the monopolist has always this scope of reducing price and yet earn money, and by doing that it actually can result in entrance loss. So the monopolist, okay, for him, so he'll go for fighting, and in this case you see both are making negative payoffs, that is, both are making loss, but the loss of entrant is more than the incumbent. Okay, so then the strategy, as we discussed, is hopefully lowering or reducing the price. Okay, and the other is obviously accommodate or to adjust. In that case, interestingly, the entrant will enjoy 2 and the incumbent will enjoy 1. So in some sense, though we do not specifically in game, we do not compare the payoffs between these two players, okay, but you can see that if the monopolist allows the other firm to enter, then there is a scenario in which the entrant will have higher payoff than the monopolist. Anyways, but in game theory, as you know, we compare between the payoffs under different strategies for the same player. All right. So this is our extensive form. Now here also, you see, here also the incumbent can observe what the entrant is doing, but there is a slight difference compared to the earlier game. It is that if the entrant plays out, then as you can see, then the game ends here, right? So practically you will think that yes, that means the incumbent has no chance of doing anything here, right? And that is correct, but if you remember the idea of strategy, it says that you must enlist what you are going to do in all possible contingencies. Now, since entrant has two options, out and in, there are actually, this is a typical type of a contingency in the sense that here, when entrance plays out, since the incumbent doesn't have the chance to act, theoretically speaking, the incumbent actually can do anything, absolutely anything. And you may feel that this idea is a bit absurd, but it's not actually. Okay. So if you think of that, if the incumbent, I'm saying again, if the incumbent is not getting a chance here, then theoretically the incumbent can do absolutely anything when the entrance plays out. Okay. It's not, the incumbent is not going to do anything, because doing nothing is an option out of doing absolutely anything. Okay. Okay. So with that difference in mind, we'll proceed to the normal form. So what happens in the normal form? So that's why in the normal form, you see, for entrant, it is out or in, right? Just like the earlier game. And for incumbent, okay, so for incumbent, since the incumbent has the options to play only if entrant plays in, I have two strategies of incumbent, right? So here it is, incumbent playing fight if entrant plays in, and here incumbent playing accommodate or adjust if entrant, the newcomer, is playing in. So this is meaningful, yes, if playing in, right? But let's look at this. What does this mean? What does this first row means? Here we are considering this. If the entrant plays out, and if farm I plays fight given incumbent, given entrant or E plays in, the payoff is 0,2. Okay. Now you know that if E plays out, then definitely it will be always 0,2, right? So here we have written that. Okay. So entrant E plays out, F given in, so 0,2, 0,2, here and here. Okay, now if we go for the Nash equilibrium, as you can see, there are two. And here also we face the same old problem. And the problem is that one of the Nash equilibrium is this. One of the Nash equilibrium is entrant plays out. So E plays out and I plays if or fight conditioned on entrant playing in. Definitely, this is something that we are never going to observe in the actual play of the game. But the question is, why then this appears? This appears because here the incumbent is allowed to play absolutely anything. All right. Okay. So this is one equilibrium again, which is absurd in the sense of observation in the actual play. But it has some implication. And the implication is this. Look at the second equilibrium. The second equilibrium, it says that if E plays in, then second equilibrium is this. If E plays in, then our incumbent, okay, goes for accommodate. So if E plays in, our incumbent go for adjustment. So that means in this equilibrium, it is possible for the new entrant to actually enter the market and enjoy these two. Now, the point that we are going to explore is this. If, or is there any way in which if incumbent or the monopolist can behave so that E, who is the first mover here, never chooses in and always chooses out. So is there any scope of play that belongs to I, which will lead E to always choose out? So that means we are saying that is there any room for credible threat? Okay. Now, as you can see that the credible threat essentially means that the incumbent will fight if the entrant enters. But there is no scope, because if you compare these two payoffs, then definitely after E plays in, I will play accommodate. It will never play fight, because this one is higher. Okay. So that said, what you can write is that there is no credible threat. There is no credible threat under which E can optimally choose out. So there is no way, no credible threat for I. So there is no way incumbent can force E to choose out. So that means this equilibrium, we will not observe this equilibrium, right? We will not observe that equilibrium. So how will I solve this game in a way that this payoff or this strategy pair will never appear as equilibrium? Okay. For that, we need, as I said, the principle of sequential rationality. Okay. So now we will look at the principle of sequential rationality. And related to this, there is a method of solving games which is called backward induction. So what does this principle basically says? It says that the players have to be rational at every point in the game tree. See, I'm explicitly saying this word game tree. So that means this principle is typically developed as we are dealing with extensive form representation, because otherwise, how will a game tree appear? So this idea of rationality is related to this representation. Okay, and by that it is related to dynamic games. So what is the important point here? The important point is at every point on the game tree, that player has to be rational. Now what does this mean? This means that if I take this game and if I draw like this, okay, and suddenly at some point of play, okay, let's say player 2 finds himself at this point or at this decision node, okay, as we said, at this decision node, then forgetting whatever happened before this decision node, the player 2 must play rationally from this decision node onwards. Okay. So if I'll say it again, if player 2 is at this decision node, then he will play rationally from this decision node onwards for the rest of the game, and that is applied for each and every decision node of the game. So that is why this rationality has this term sequential. So here you are rational, then here you are rational, and in every sequence of play. Okay, so that's why this is the principle of sequential rationality. And if I apply this, then if I apply this to the game that we just solved, then we are saying that given our structure, okay, I'll just quickly write the game. So given our structure, sorry, player I must play rationally at this decision node. What does this mean? This means player I is confronted with this small game, this game, right? This small game. And here I know that rationality says I will go for this strategy, right? So I chooses accommodate. Okay? So applying the idea of sequential rationality, being rational, I chooses accommodate. Now what we will do? We will erase this part of the game. This is our first part of task. We'll erase this part of the game, and then since this payoff wins, we will write this payoff here, and we will call this the reduced extensive form game. Okay, so this is the reduced game. So this is our first one, right? And here also, E must play rationally and must choose in, because 2 is higher than 0. All right. So in the first, I choose goes for accommodate, and the second, E goes for in. So that means our equilibrium here is in, comma, accommodate, given, sorry, conditioned on, right? Accommodate, conditioned on E plays in, right? So that's how we solve this game using sequential rationality. And this method, which applies this principle of sequential rationality, is called the method of backward induction. So this is called solving by backward induction. You can easily get why the name is this, right? Because we moved backward. We considered the last decision node. Then we looked for the optimal behavioral optimal strategy. And then we considered the game before that. And then we considered the optimal strategy. And then we found the equilibrium. Okay. All right. So this is our predation game. However, there is one loophole which is very easily observed. And the loophole is this. The method of backward induction is only applicable. So we just write backward induction is only applicable for games of perfect information. Games of perfect information. And let me give you a hint why. The first level of difficulty is very simple to understand. You see, if you remember, if you go to the original game, then this is a game of perfect information because all information sets are singleton. What if it is not? What if one information set contains 2 decision nodes? Then the question that we face is this: which decision node will be the initial node for the game we will consider, for the game that we will consider in isolation. What I'm saying is this: we broke the big game in two parts and we solved this one first, right? And for this game, this is the initial node. But if the information set carried two decision nodes, then which one? Or even can even is the eligibility criteria, is the eligibility criteria is good for even one of them? We will see that it is not. So that will lead us to another topic, which is subgame. And after understanding what subgame is, we will go to subgame perfect Nash equilibrium.